Senator Urquhart.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I stand in this place as one of many strong supporters for marriage equality from the Labor Party. Marriage equality for many in our party fits with our values of fairness, equality, family and compassion, and of course reason, logic and progression. Values of fairness, fairness to all in our community, fairness for all those in our society who are doing it tough for many reasons, fairness to those who have a disability, fairness to those who are less fortunate, fairness to have the opportunity to succeed regardless of their circumstances, values of equality, equality to all those in our society, regardless of their gender, regardless of their religion, regardless of their race, regardless of their sexual orientation, and regardless of their age. Equality for those in our society about how they live their lives and the opportunities they should receive. Values of family, whatever the makeup of that family is. Families today are very different than what history would define a family to be. Regardless of how a family is made up, the support from a family unit is now as important to individuals and to our community as ever. A close, caring, loving, respectful family network is something that we all should support and foster regardless of what that family makeup is. Values of compassion, respect and tolerance. If a friend or a stranger stumbles in the street, then we do our best to help them out, but always respecting their choices and decisions, not prejudging people for whatever reason. I believe in respecting people for what and who they are, not what others like them to be. I respect people based on their actions unto others and values of reason, logic and progression. I endeavour to approach issues with reason and logic. Prejudice consistently results in poor outcomes. Attempting to use reason and logic to progress our society for the betterment of our grandchildren and their grandchildren is at my core. Australians now overwhelmingly want our Parliament to amend the Marriage Act to allow any two adults, regardless of sex, sexuality or gender identity, the honour and privilege of standing in front of their family and friends and make a commitment to each other. To allow the children of people in same-sex relationships the stability of knowing that their family is just as special in this country as all other families. To allow the community to celebrate the love and commitment of two Australians that no doubt are good citizens, pay their taxes and abide by the laws of the land. I read for senators a motion passed at the 2009 Tasmanian State Conference supporting marriage equality. This Tasmanian State Labor Conference believes that all couples who have a mutual commitment to a shared life should have their relationships treated equally and without discrimination on the basis of their sexual orientation. The conference believes in equal access to marriage under Australian law, regardless of the sex of the parties. The government should reform the Marriage Act to allow same-sex couples the right to marry, therefore fully recognising their relationship and removing discrimination. The conference believes the government should recognise the change in the community attitudes regarding this issue and bring full equality to the law. That motion was passed in 2009. It was the first of its kind from a state Labor conference in the country. Tasmania, a state that in 1997 amended its criminal code to remove homosexuality, is also the first state where a major party clearly voted in favour of marriage equality. Testament to the values of our Labor members in Tasmania that they wanted to continue the long and proud history of delivering change. A proud history of giving effect to the principle of equality and ensuring inequality is not sewn into the fabric of our community. It was Labor governments that introduced the first land rights legislation, introduced the Racial Discrimination Act, recognised native title through the Mabo legislation, enacted the Sex Discrimination Act, repealed the ban on gays and lesbians serving in our armed forces, introduced the Disability Discrimination Act, and will soon amend the Equal Opportunity for Women in the Workplace Agency to become the improved and more encompassing Workplace Gender Equality Agency. Tasmanian Labor has led the nation with progressive change, upholding values of equality and fairness, as the only state to provide compensation to the stolen generation and one of the first states to apologise. The state with the most progressive anti-discrimination laws in the country, and the first state to introduce a relationship register, and we were the first state to recognise same-sex marriages recognised in other jurisdictions. Just recently, at our State Labor Conference this year, our Premier Lara Giddings passionately moved a motion, and I quote, "This State Labor Conference believes that in the event the Federal Parliament fails to end discrimination in the Federal Marriage Act, the State of Tasmania should step in to do the right thing and pass a state-based gender-neutral marriage act. The conference believes that this will provide fair and equitable access to marriage to all Tasmanians and urges the Tasmanian Government to act immediately to draft legislation in the event a vote to change the Marriage Act fails in the Federal Parliament. The conference believes the State of Tasmania should allow marriage licences to be granted to couples outside of Tasmania and notes the economic boom this would provide to the state. In just 3 years, our state had gone from being the first to support natural marriage equality to being the first to support state-based marriage equality. I congratulate Premier Giddings for her courage in taking on this challenge and urge all members of the Tasmanian Parliament to support fairness and support marriage equality. I must thank the Rainbow Labor Network in Tasmania for their phenomenal lobbying work to put marriage equality onto the agenda in Tasmania. To keep us as a state branch of the ALP reaffirming our commitment to marriage equality and to push for state-based marriage equality in the event of failure at a federal level, because marriage equality marries so well with so many Labor values. At last year's Tasmanian State Conference, there was a contribution in support of marriage equality from a man who formerly looked upon homosexuality as wrong. He spoke of his struggle when his son came out, a struggle in comprehending his son's sexuality that soon turned to how he could best support his son. As his son is now in a loving relationship, he spoke of his wish for his son to be able to marry that partner that he loves in front of his family and friends. The tide has turned in Tasmania. A survey conducted by Senator Carol Brown in 2011 of over 1,000 Tasmanians, a clear majority of 55% supported marriage equality. Mr Acting Deputy President, in 2008, in one of our first actions as a new government, Labor amended over 85 pieces of Commonwealth legislation to remove discrimination against same-sex de facto couples. These amendments provide financial equality, assisting with the day-to-day financial security issues that were faced by same-sex de facto couples in Australia. Some Labor state governments also provided fair access to assisted and reproductive technology, such as IVF, and made same-sex couples eligible for adoption. Great achievements. We must celebrate Labor achievements that have comprehensively removed discrimination towards same-sex de facto couples, making their day-to-day lives easier and opening opportunities that all Australians should have the right to access. I follow the logic that if we can recognise and accept a couple as a couple and provide all couples with equal access to legal and financial benefits, then we must also be able to support the symbolic and ceremonial recognition of same-sex couples by amending the Marriage Act. With regards to relationship recognition, the key issue here is no longer the ability to access legal or financial benefits. It is primarily a symbolic issue, and as can be seen from the fierce debate it elicits, an extremely important one. Same-sex couples want the same public, symbolic and ceremonial recognition of their commitment to each other. For those who say state-based registers, and I clarify, those who say state-based registers and not marriage, most relationship registers are intended as a non-ceremonial certification of same-sex couples. This fails to encompass one of the most important elements on relationship recognition. We can see this evidenced in Queensland, where the newly elected Liberal National Government watered down the relationship register to such a degree that some marriage equality advocates have described it as like registering a pet or a car. To do anything but amending the Marriage Act continues to deny rights to members of our community, and it says to our community at large that same-sex couples are not equal. It says to our community that their relationships are of lesser value. It says to some young Australians that they are lesser members of our community, and for no good reason. Same-sex couples are not looking for any special treatment. They are not looking for anything more than anyone else. They are just asking for the same rights and to be treated as everyone else. They are just asking for their kids to have a fair go. A child in my hometown does not tell his friends about his mum's relationship. Although this 9-year-old boy should be worried about the games he will play with his mates and how to pass his tests at school, he is burdened with a fear that he will be bullied if his mates find out about his mum. His mum, who is in a loving relationship and does everything for him. Not being able to marry is very sad for her, but what is sadder is that her son cannot tell his peers about her relationship, because even at his young age he realises that he will be bullied. He does so many amazing and exciting things with them, like camping, bird watching, hiking and boating, just like any family. But it concerns him that he has to censor his life. It is so sad that a little boy already knows and has to live with discrimination. Marriage equality can help to put an end to this for this boy and many others in his same situation. A boy whose childhood should not be about instilling in him the skills and dreams that will see him become a good Australian. A boy that should be worried about what the games to play with his friends, about what he needs to do for his next school assignment, about whether he got a few kicks in his last footy game. A boy that should not be burdened with the fear of bullying if he shares stories of his weekend with his mum and her partner. Opponents of marriage equality use the pretence of protecting children as one of their major arguments. I challenge them to look a child like this brave boy in the eyes and say that the current laws are protecting him. I challenge them to move beyond their belief of what they see as a traditional family unit, to accept that our society is comprised of so many family structures and we must enshrine in our laws a safe environment for all of them. Changing the Marriage Act will give us a future where all people are treated equally, with dignity and respect. But it needs to be amended in a comprehensive and thorough fashion. There are currently a number of bills before the Parliament on this issue. Labor members have moved to co-sponsor a comprehensive marriage equality amendment bill that addresses some technical concerns with this bill before us today. I understand that the bill would be given substantial time for debate during the September sitting period. I will support that bill when it comes to this place. It reflects that the party with the majority of supporters for marriage equality in this place should be the party that introduces the bill. It reflects that this bill, as it stands, will need to be amended, as all votes on marriage equality bills are the subject of conscience votes, as lobbied so vigorously for by the Greens. Mr Deputy President, the Labor Party has a different value set to that of the Greens political party. Values built over the past 200 years from our working class base. Values built through the trade union movement. Values that stem from a base that reflects all that we are and all that we do. The Greens political party say they support action on climate change, but they twice voted against the carbon pollution reduction scheme. They say they support refugees, but they oppose population growth. They say they support science and fact-based policy, but with a sniff of opportunity jump straight on the FAM bandwagon. What if we could look to transparency? No, the Greens political party conferences are all done behind closed doors. What about democratic internal party structures? Mr Acting Deputy President, Senator Thorpe was elected by a vote of hundreds of rank-and-file members of the Tasmanian Labor Party. As far as I'm aware, rank-and-file members of the Greens political party do not have the same opportunity. When many in the Labor Party were calling for a binding caucus vote on marriage equality, where were the Greens political party? They were out there asking for a conscience vote, demanding a conscience vote that would highlight divisions in the two major parties for PR purposes. And today they have brought forward debate on this bill. What for? To pass it through Parliament today. The Greens party must be judged by their actions on this issue. I move to share the story of a transsexual Tasmanian, where if this woman wasn't honest with herself, she would be allowed to marry. She told me that twice she has been in love, once as a man and once since transitioning as a woman. Both relationships exactly the same, both had highs and lows, both founded on love. The first of those relationships was able to be celebrated publicly. They married and the relationship thus gained society's blessing. After the death of his wife, who was the only person he had previously told of his struggles with his gender, he decided to transition. Since transitioning, she found love again, and again with a woman, but no matter how this relationship is valued by her family, friends, colleagues and community, it is somehow less valued. She explained that she is still the same person she was when married years ago, but that she is more honest now with herself and with her community. If the relationship deserves recognition as a marriage, it is only just that the second one does. The only difference is her gender. In her current life, she has chosen to be more honest with society about who she is, and remarkably, if she had not undergone transitioning therapy and legally changed her sex, she would be legally allowed to marry. This great country rewards people for their honesty. We must remove this barrier that prevents decent people from being fully honest with their self and their community. As Australians, we pride ourselves on our ability on the sporting field. I've learnt of the discrimination of a Tasmanian couple faced at their local golf club, a club that is always looking for new members when they decided to join as partners. One was a successful golfer. Her new partner was keen to join as she knew quite a number of the members and thought it would be fun. The behaviour from some of the club members who had previously known her partner when she was a married straight woman was extremely hurtful to them both. Although they acted no differently to any other couple at the club, her partner was never welcomed as a new member. The club has a membership discount for married couples, and of course these women could not qualify for that discount. They told me it was not the money that hurt, it was the attitude that they were lesser members of the club. Even though one had been a club champion many times and the other was known and liked by many members outside of this setting, as you might expect, the burden of continual exclusion and snide remarks resulted in the women resigning from the club, and provides another example of how continuing to deny marriage equality instills discrimination within our society. But attitudes change with time. Polls consistently show there is a majority support for marriage equality, and many countries around the world have recognised same-sex relationships. In Australian law, there has always been a clear distinction between civil and religious marriages, because people are able to be wed in a civil ceremony. A religious body is able to choose not to wed a couple and should remain free to have this choice. People of different religions are able to be wed, and not all forms of marriage are permissible under law, even if they are allowed under a religious text. In recent years, 2/3 of marriages have been conducted in a civil ceremony with no involvement or mention of religion. However, people are currently not free to have a wedding without discrimination. A marriage celebrant must, regardless of the wishes of the bride and groom, include in the mononym the Marriage Act's current definition of marriage. Without these words, a marriage cannot be solemnised. A marriage celebrant highlighted to me the growing dissatisfaction from brides and grooms that these words must be used on their special day, that a phrase that a majority of our society feel is discriminatory and should be repealed must be recited for a marriage to be solemnised is so unfortunate. It is not enough that same-sex attracted people are prohibited from marriage in this country. I acknowledge that this debate is difficult and that the community is divided. That for many overcoming long-held prejudice is tough. That is why I approach this debate with my Labor values at the fore, using values I derive from our Labor base. One of the Labor Party's great strengths is in fighting to promote equality, fairness and dignity for all. We must comprehensively move to end all legislated discrimination in this country.